Greetings, it's Ian from RTO here. Welcome to another album ranking. And today we're going to look at My Itchy Nose. No, not really. We're going to have a look at a member of Pink Floyd. And we're going to look at drummer Nick Mason. Nicholas Berkey Mason. CBE. 27th of January 1944. So he's got a birthday coming up, a big birthday. And of course he was one of the founding members of Pink Floyd. And he's the only member of the band to have ever appeared on every Pink Floyd album. He did actually co-wrote some compositions, including bits of Echo's Time, Careful with That Axe, Eugene, and One of These Days. He formed a new band and it's called Nick Mason Saucerful of Secrets, which has got Guy Pratt and your man Mr. Kemp. Which one is it? Gary Kemp. And they do all the old classic Pink Floyd songs. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1996. And of course he's renowned for collecting classic cars and taking part in motorsport. Now, apart from all that, he has played on lots of people's albums. And too many to mention, but when it comes down to it, he's only released 3 albums officially that go down to Nick Mason, and one of those is a collaboration. So we're going to have a look at them. They're all good. I like them all, but they're in this order because you've got to have them in some sort of order. So if people think I've put that number 3, their number 1 at number 3, it's not the end of the world. I like them. I do listen to all 3 of them, so it's not like I don't dismiss any of them. So, coming in at number 3 is the solo debut album from 1981, and it's called Nick Mason's Fictitious Sports. Now on here he's got playing Carla Bley on keyboards. Robert Wyatt plays on here as well. Karen Kraft sings on here. Guitarist Chris Spedding, who played on War of the Worlds, of course. Steve Swallows on bass. Got Michael Mantler on trumpets. Gary Window tenor sax. Gary Valente trombones. Howard Johnson on the tuba. Got Terry Adams on piano on something. Carlos Ward, David Sharp and Vincent Charney do additional voices. First track on here is called Can't Get My Motor to Start. Now this is bizarre. It is really bizarre, but I do like it for some unknown reason. The drumming's pretty good. It's got some lovely harmonica on it. It's just all totally weird and wonderful. Then we have a track called I Was Wrong. Saxophones are terrible on here, I'm sorry. It really does slam it. It doesn't make any sense on that. Apart from that, it's got a damn good bass line and some excellent drumming from Nick, of course. Then we have Simon. This is my favourite track on here. It's one of my favourite tracks that he's done as a solo artist. I love that it's a proggy sort of sound. You've got Robert Wyatt on here. It's pretty cool. I like that track. Hot River Comes Next. This is a really good track. The middle bit is great. You've got the bass guitar and the piano. It's a fantastic fusion. And then we have A Boo to You. This is rock and roll, especially the piano. Nice guitar. We've got the brass in here as well. It all sounds pretty cool. Then we have Do Yat. Probably the worst track on here. I've never been a fan of this. It's all over the place. Not very coherent for me. There's going to be people pulling their hair out, but this is just a bit of fun, of course. Then we have Wervin. I couldn't get into this one either. I really couldn't. And the last track is very eerie. It's called I'm a Minor Realist. A minimalist, or I don't. It's quite good. It's eerie. I like the vocal on this. The keyboards are really good, and some excellent drumming from Nick. This isn't a bad album. I don't dislike it. There's a couple of tracks on here that I find a bit strange, but I do like listening to this, believe you me. And I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 6 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 2, this is a soundtrack he did, and it features Rick Fenn from 10cc and Mike Oldfield, and it's called White of the Eye. It's a film directed by Donald Cammell, starring David Keith and Kathy Moriarty. So he does the music. So the first one is called Gold Waters. It's very 80s sounding, but with Rick's great guitar work, it makes it quite pleasant to listen to. Remember Me. Once again, you've got some nice drumming on here, some lovely guitar tones from Rick Fenn. He is a great guitarist. You know, having recently watched him perform on stage, he is pretty good. And then we have Where Are You, Joni? Okay, it's got some very 80s Nick Mason drumming on it, but it sounds pretty good. It's a nice little pleasant track. Dry Junk, my favourite track on here. It's very quirky. I love Nick's sort of percussion on this. It's very good. And you've got some great little bits of guitar from Rick as well. Present, the lovely keyboards on this got a nice tone. Sax is even brilliant on this. It's fantastic. Then we got Ritual. It's a very strange little guitar piece with a little bit of keyboard in it, but it's wonderful playing from Rick Fenn. Globe, very countrified this is. Excellent drumming from Nick. It's a sort of an all-round sort of country song. Discovery and Recoil. Once again, it's a little oddments of here and there, and it's some great guitar from Rick. And then we have a little thing called Ann Mason. Lovely bluesy thing. Second favourite track on here. I love the percussion. They've got some double bass in it. Pretty cool, I think. Up next is Mendoza. Got the tombola drum, the drum they use in India. It really adds to it. Rick's little guitar bits, and he's got a great solo from Rick on that. World of Appearances, atmospheric. This sort of goes back to some of that early Pink Floyd sound. It's really good. Sacrifice Dance, the bass is great in this. Very powerful drumming from Nick on that. Excellent drumming. White of the Eye, some gentle percussion on this. It's just so simple. Nice little bit of guitar from Rick. That was the last track. Now, although this is a soundtrack, I think this is one of those soundtracks you can listen to without knowing what's going on the film. I think this is a really good soundtrack, actually, and I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 6.5. Okay, but my number one album, and this is an album that I picked up many years ago, and I just picked it up because it said Rick Fenn and Nick Mason on the front, and that's the only reason I brought it. And it's Profiles. It's Nick's second album, and it was released in 1985. So playing on here, of course, is Nick Mason on the drums, keyboards and composing, Mr. Rick Fenn on guitars and keyboards. Mel Collins, now here's a saxophonist that turns up all the time. Also playing on there is his mate from Pink Floyd, David Gilmour, and all he does is the vocals. And another lady, we've got Maggie Riley, Danny Peronal, Craig Puce, and Aja Fenn on Malta. So, first track is Malta. I love this. Although it's very 80s production, the sound on it is absolutely brilliant. It's got a great guitar solo from Rick on it. Absolutely adore that. Then we have Lie for a Lie. I love this. It's my favourite song on here. So, you know, David Gilmour and Maggie Riley, great combination. It's a quirky little number and I really like it. Rhoda, this has got some nice jazzy guitar from Rick Fenn. I do like that. Then we have Profiles. It is. I mean, this is made 1985 because it's got a lot of 1980 songs, but the keyboards and drums are pretty good. I like it. It's considering where it sounds a little dated now, but I just think it's an excellent track. Then we have Israel. This has got Danny Peroni on it. Another 80s song. It's fine. I mean, you got to remember this was out in the 80s. Add the Address. It's so dated, but it's got one hell of a solo on it. Mumbo Jumbo. 280s for me. But when you sit and listen to it under the headphones, you have to appreciate the musicianship. Like Zip Code, it's the worst track on here. I'm not into that track. It's just far too 80s for me. Back Ice, an excellent track. It's a good rocker. It's got some nice guitar work and drums. At the end of the day, probably one of the nicest tracks with Rick Fenn's guitar work on it. And then Profiles Part 3 with some nice guitar and drumming from Nick. On the whole, it is a really good album. There's a couple of tracks that I'm not so keen on, but it is a really strong album. You know, I love the people who's got on there, and considering I picked this up for back in the fiver back in the day, I was quite chuffed. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7 out of 10. So there we go, a little short look into some of Nick Mason's solo work. As I said, they are all good in their own little way. I don't dislike these albums. I do like playing them. I actually had the Sports Fans was one on in last week while I was doing some work, and it Fictitious Sports. Yeah, and I really enjoyed listening to it while I was doing some research. Okay, that's all for this one. I'll be back very shortly with the retro ranking, and we're gonna do another in the bad song series. This week it's Black Sabbath. Yes, I found some songs by Black Sabbath that really don't do it for me. And I am a huge Black Sabbath fan. That's the thing. Okay, I'll see you for that later. Bye for now.